Giovanni Singleton is a poet, teacher, and founding editor of Nocturne's Review of the Literary Arts, a journal dedicated to the work of artists and writers of the African diaspora and other contested spaces. She has been a fellow at the Squaw Valley Community of Writers, Cave Canem, and the Napa Valley Writers Conference. She has taught at St. Mary's College, Nairobi University, and in museums and schools throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. Her book, Ascension, published last year by Counterpath, won the 81st Annual California Book Award for Poetry. It was probably about 10 years ago now when I first read Giovanni's work. I had already identified Nocturnes as one of a handful of journals that I could sit down with and read cover to cover, no slack. After meeting Nathaniel Mackey at a meeting at Woodland Pattern Book Center in Milwaukee, I asked him, who should I know? And he said, Giovanni Singleton. So we invited her to Woodland Pattern, where she gave a great reading. And I've been waiting for this book, Ascension, a highlight of my reading life last year ever since. The longest section of Ascension is a daybook composed during Alice Coltrane's 49-day transition through the bardo, the intermediate states between death and rebirth. It's no surprise that I can imagine Giovanni saying something about her poetry that is akin to the statement that Coltrane made about her music. Avant-garde music to me is like journeying across the country until you come to a beautiful park. You say, we'll stop here for just a moment. After a while, you decide to go onward because you know of a nice area ahead. But before you leave, you see a lake that you didn't notice before, and you decide to stay and experience that for a while. Sometimes your moment is there, like an eternity. This type of thing is quite prevalent in my music. Giovanni has elevated her craft to a place where she can focus the reader's attention on both the daily and the open field that exists where excess has been removed. A daily where dream and reality are given equal measure, where the diversion or the improv is really the path, and where the poet is determined witness. In the structure of her imagination, a recipe for making chai cited from the I Ching hexagram 37 is held in focus with the extraordinary experience of hearing a train that isn't there, and the gruesome matter-of-factness of seeing a dead fox along the road. The risk we all run, she says. I have to also think here that the risk in this book is also the risk the poet takes when calling the unknown to being. Giovanni says, I write in order to trace echoes to their sources, as Li Chi says in Wen Fu. The work, I feel, can bring a certain truth along with it, and it isn't always pleasant, reasonable, or even coherent to me. The essence of things is what matters. Liberation forever beckons, as does magic, mystery, beauty, trouble the water. Please join me in welcoming Giovanni Singleton.
This evening I would like to begin with work from Ascension. And I think I will start a little bit before that and first offer a poem by Lucille Clifton, who was a close friend of Alice Coltrane's. Their children even dated at one point. It is also a poem that I offered at Alice Coltrane's elevation service at her ashram in Southern California. The poem is entitled Blessing the Boats by Lucille Clifton. May the tide that is entering even now, the lip of our understanding, carry you out beyond the face of fear. May you kiss the wind, then turn from it, certain that it will love your back. May you open your eyes to water, water waving forever. And may you, in your innocence, sail through this to that. So the first section, the second section actually of Ascension is entitled Ear of the Behir. And as Stacy mentioned, it is in the form of a day book recorded over the 49-day transition of Alice Coltrane from this life to the next. So I'm going to read some excerpts from that. And the poems are titled Days for each of the days. Day 2. Blues poet stands at the crossroads, framed in indigo light. He reaches his hand around to his left side. slits himself open as if to gut a fish. Once inside, he feels his heart, touches his liver. But he is not an oyster. He has not eaten sand. What then can a pearl be? Day 7. And just what color is blue? Names forgive their meaning. Sundays are for what a mind thinks. History of touching stretches out beneath the surface. The only way to sleep is to imagine it is raining. And it is raining. Wind blows open and over a final line of defense. What happens, happens far away. Day 11. At night, high beams scan the unseeable distance, an untitled landscape. Black is not a shade, but rather an impression, oil on canvas. Scratch and sniff lawns on southern streets where one sips lemonade or iced tea before hosing down weeds in the way of light. Still life with. Jars marked and mislabeled for proper identification. Enjambment is a way of doing it, standing room only. Drums do not go quietly. Their chained rhythm treads water and stretches of road. Ocean as enclosed. Day 18. Because he disremembered the past bound itself to him. It creased his mouth, furrowed his brow, grayed his hair. When he spoke, his voice used the language of disremembering. Because he disremembered his ex-wife, their love bound itself to him. Whenever he turned around, one could see her face looking out from the back of his head. Day 20. Through a gate that casts no shadow, steps lead to a house no longer standing. Inside, each room had become another, what was ready-made and monstrous. Someone else drew the picture, entered antlers first. Day 22. This is the memory of my first hike ever. Paintbrushes, buttercups, hemlock. Purple lupine make little beams after their flowers are gone. 3 dogs, 2 men, 3 women. Eucalyptus trees whose leaves fell quite some time ago. Chamomile, forget-me-nots, sage. Mallow shoots itself up and branches into trees. We don't step on the black scarab beetle in the middle of the path, nor the lizard in sphinx pose. Anthill, gopher hole, hornet's nest. We see fennel, some non-native thistle. We eat mustard flowers, taste of Dijon. Queen Anne's lace, nettle, miner's ladder. And toward the end, there's a little climb. Day 27. All that day, labored breath, the dead brushed against me, a litany of faces, their names beside. Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Tommy K. Lumbara, Mahalia Jackson, Shirley Ann Hempel, Isabel Sanford, Shirley Chisholm, Clara Ward, Nell Carter, Lynn Thigpen, Fantastic Gyre, Hours Struck, Memory Turned Upon Itself, Unable to Halt, Liberation, The Souls, Iron, Clapper. Day 28. Write what you know. To make chai, boil water, crush cardamom and whole black pepper using mortar and pestle. Add mixture to boiling water. Add whole milk with cream on top. Boil. Add loose black tea. Stir. Sugar, optional. Continue boiling for a time before reducing heat. Let sit to cool. Day 29. Write what you know. Continued. Flattery is a fool's delight. Day 35. When I was 9 years old, I killed a bird, he said. Why? I asked. Because I wanted to see what was inside. And did you see? I don't remember. Well, then close your eyes. Why? He asked. To see what's inside, I said. Day 39. Black girl, you are a black girl. Black girl, play on black top, play. Girl, black, you are a black girl. Jump down, turn around. Black girl, sing pretty song. You are a black girl. Play on merry-go-round. You black girl, look, merry-go-mad. You black, you girl. Day 42. In a fitful state, a neighbor swallowed the moon. People often wish to receive more than they give, pronounced the doctor, who weeks earlier had himself devoured 3 planets. Day 44. A mother agrees to look away while her son tosses a coin into the fountain. Did you throw it in yet? She asks impatiently. Water roars from the lion's mouth. Yeah, I've been done that, the boy says, having wished some odd dream into being. Day 47. Brown bark stems picked for pretty, bent forward bodies, tufts of white, floral arranged in 12-foot window, not meant to frame now absent master, save the bold weevil in turns of earth, the unmercied blink, cotton ball eyes, their mournful songs, my own pricked fingers. Day 49. Go, go, go into the forest. Walk among the deer. I'd like to share a couple from another section called Melanin Sweet, and it's a series of nine poems, 9 movements, each bearing a title which represents, names a shade of brown. There were 10, but I was asked to drop one, so just know the missing one. First movement, burnt umber. Silence, a guardrail, teeth knitted together, a corrugated tongue. Silence leaves a strain of being work, of looking almost dead. Shade burns as if to interfere. Photographs, a need to hold still for a moment. Everything that counts appears in past tense. Time accumulates, as in a reflecting pool. Fifth movement, Sienna. We, us, and thou, voices sound the downtown destination. The boulevard, horns blow, fast and furious. Ghostly drummer makes flight sound rap, tap, 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 tap. Conductor of multi-directional speaking. Crowds stand behind cranial walls, all smoke-filled. Boy, man, a vast expanse. Skeletal remains spread down on the ground, as in quilted covering. One more. This is eighth movement, mahogany. Ecstatic song, escuchar, a mask in every note. Feather-fletched arrows due east, las palabras. A ceremonial gesture. Premonitions at the landscape's edge. Palatial bed of wildflowers, los ojos. An arc of rainbow light, la puerta. Ears opening, a refrain, as in Holy Ghost. This is a poem called Exodus, and I was just really happy to finally have written a two-page poem. It's really exciting. Exodus. All night about above, I go down, stare out at rushing water through open window. Ocean of starlit sky fills my hand, unburdens the weight of my brain. Blooms a lotus flower. Its stem stretches up through the soles of my feet. Pathway to the country inside me. Its people, seekers, naked in a smokeless clearing. Stained glass maze. Past lifetimes spent hunting crow. Here they go, here they go, here they go. Astral stream of inky wings fluttering skyward. Echoes of ancient chants rise from the wooden cage in my throat. We are not this dance, but that one. Weather flashes across the backsides of my eyelids. We, me, and Timon too, fold up our chairs, go inside our cranial houses. This earthen soul, a flock of birds, where we are new, we are new, we are new to this body. I was told too that the nice thing to do in readings is to also offer something that's not yet for sale. So I'd like to do that, working on a couple of different things, but I would offer some poems from a series of self-portraits. This one's called Self-Portrait, not after John Ashbery's self-portrait in a convex mirror, though if it were, it might very well have turned out a better poem, or better yet, unwritten. See a horse on its side galloping. My left pupil is smaller than my right. My left eye the future, protection of Horus's moon. My right eye the past, or because of mother. My head shows in the top mirror. My belly reflects in the one below. Apples and pears are at home. A spirit drinking from the upstairs tap. I make myself a number 8 with 2 vertically stacked circles. Birds feed on a heart-centered life. The red leaves, an angel entering. And some of you may know that I took up knitting about a year ago, and one of my favorite stitches is seed stitch, which is, it's a lot of work, and I don't know why it became one of my favorites. It's like, take it easy. This is supposed to be a hobby, right? This is self-portrait as seed stitch. Cast on, bring yarn to front, purl, take yarn to back, knit. Public, private. When the seed is there, it will be a fish or an anchored wish. Public, private, bring yarn to front and purl, take yarn to back and knit. In the bushes, dropped stitch, something missing, a life lesson. Pick up to keep going, the better way to hold yarn, bone to bone. Control the tension, color of skin, of skein, how to lift, what to contain. Public, private, bring yarn to front and purl, take yarn to back and knit. Mohair's halo echoes, knit on points, love deeply felt. Counting years, months, days, counting stitches to gauge. The before of memory and of loss. Public, private, bring yarn to front, purl, take yarn to back, knit. Cast off, rows of sky, light into lungs. And this other one, it's called Jaywalker. And I don't know how many of you jaywalked. But hopefully this will deter you from doing that more. It's about a jaywalker at the corner of Adeline and Alcatraz in Oakland, and for some reason this intersection just encourages, jaywalking. I don't know why that particular intersection is just full of them. So this is called Jaywalker. Snapping fingers, swinging arms, she goes against the flow, against the light, against her mama's and grandma's admonitions. She on the phone, talking loud and being cool and generational, not looking, not caring about direction, not caring about seeing the red, not seeing red. The heat is hot, I'm held up, trying to help not to plow through and get somebody hurt. I stop the flow, roll down the window. Say, is where you going worth your life? And I've shared two more. Right now there is, I have a couple of pieces in a visual art exhibit at the Smithsonian's American Jazz Museum in Missouri. And it's also a poem that's been published. It's called Portrait of Charlie Parker. Sometimes it's called Bird Cage or Caged Bird, but it's a poem in the shape of a bird cage. I don't know if you guys can see that. And it's created using one word, the word bird, repeated over and over again. As well, I want to be able to read this. So what I decided to do is to use each occurrence of the word bird as a site for improvisation. So the piece changes each time that I read it. Portrait of Charlie Parker or Caged Bird. Bird, bird, juju bird, drum bird, Charlie bird, Parker bird. I'm for the birds, not the cages people put them in. John, bird, cage, cage, conference of the birds. Bird gets the worm, bird, sheltering sky, bird, all the things you are. Bird, say bird, fly, bird, land, bird, grooving high. Bird, song, bird, sky, sheltering, bird, start again, bird, Parker, bird, Charlie, bird, Parker, come together, uptown, stellar J, bird, wings spread, bird, red, bird, constellation, bird, feathers, bird, oobop, shabam, breathe, bird, B-I-R-D, ornithology, I'm for the birds, not the cages, we put them in, bird, not the cages, we are in, feed, bird, fly, free, bird, away, bird, by, black, bird, breathe. Then I'd like to end with this poem. It's dedicated to Don Cornelius of Soul Train. How many of you know Soul Train? Okay. Well, he passed away, and he died in the morning, and that afternoon I gave the very first public reading from Ascension. But I had written this poem like 2 weeks before, so it had been on my mind, because when I was younger, I aspired to be a soul train dancer. Yeah, I admit it. So in this poem, I get there somehow, I think, with a little help from the godfather of soul, James Brown. Still life as soul train dancer. The beat, the beat, the beat, the backbeat, backbeat, the backbeat, the beat, the beat, the beat. Ain't nothing going on but the rent. The beat, the beat, the beat, the beat. Get on the good foot. The beat, the beat, the beat, the beat. That's where it's at. The beat, the beat, the beat, the beat, the beat. I feel good. The beat, the beat, the beat, the beat, the beat. Take it to the bridge. The beat, the beat, the beat, the beat. Get on down. The beat, 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 the beat. Get up.
It's great to see everyone here, and it's really great for me to be able to be here tonight and co-host with Stacy, which is a delight. And it's great to hear Giovanni's reading, and I'm just really happy to be able to introduce Brenda Hillman. In recent years, Brenda has been writing a tetralogy inspired by the classical elements. The books on earth, air, and water have all been published by Wesleyan, and the work on fire, I know, is underway. All of these works exemplify an ethos of beside, as in the lines from Practical Water, I don't do beyond, I do beside. To me, in the ever confusing and interesting dialogue about what eco-poetics might be, that's about as astute a formulation as I've come upon. I lost my copy of the first of these books, Cascadia, in a fire, which somehow seems appropriate. But I remember admiring it as a meditation on history and geology, and the unique way these things intersect in the American West, particularly in California. What I liked was that the poetry managed to be both expansive about the local and environmental about the historical. There's also more and more a reportorial side to Hillman's poetry, which typically, and maybe or maybe not unexpectedly, also shows traces of her long-term use of trance as a technique of composition. Her essay poem titled Reportorial Poetry, Trance, and Activism begins with a sentence, "Reportorial poetics can be used to record detail with immediacy while one is doing an action and thinking about something else." This aspect of her work is bound to a commitment to political activism as a member of the group Code Pink. In the poetry, it can take the form of lines in which the alphabet hovers above the heads of the members of the Congressional Subcommittee on Electronic Surveillance, refusing to be deployed in their service. And yet, I think emphasizing the reportorial aspects can give a somewhat skewed sense of Hillman's poetry. She said, "I decided early on to cut across aesthetic traditions out of defiance." And her work ranges from the traditional lyric to the quasi-encyclopedic experiment. I was reading Pieces of Air in the Epic again this weekend, and I realized if I were to try to give a sense of its language universe, I would have to include the Doppler effect, platonic oxygen, an atonal irradiating cloth, a burning magpie nun, epic air, vowel bells, glass mosquitoes, translators, vents, and, quote, something unsystematic with our angel, unquote. Although I've been talking about Hillman's most recent books, she is the author of 8 books of poetry, the co-editor of the anthology The Grand Permission, New Writings on Poetics and Motherhood, and editor of a collection of Dickinson's poems published by Shambhala Press in 1995. She's also just become the recipient of the Academy of American Poets Fellowship for Distinguished Poetic Achievement. So please welcome Brenda Hillman.
Thank you, Evelyn. That was lovely. I'm very moved and honored that you would introduce me. And thanks to Stacy and to the Poetry Project for this lovely evening. Giovanni, you rock. I love you. That next book isn't going to be so hard for us to get out, is it? I really was a persistent and annoying nag. So thank you all for coming. I thought I'd read a few poems, 2 or 3 from Pieces of Air in the Epic. Marjorie Wellish, dear friend and brilliant poet, asked me to read a couple of poems, and I thought I would read. This is called Street Corner. It's written in Berlin. I was working with the form for 4 words per line, 24-line poems. There was an angle where I went for centuries, not as a self or feature, but exhaled as a knowing brick, tradesman engineered for blunt or close recall. Soundly there, meanings grew, past a second terror, finding their way as evenings, hearing the peppermint noise of sparrows, landing like spare dreams of citizens where abstraction and the real could merge. We had crossed the red forest. We had recognized a weird lodge. We could have said, song outlasts poetry. Words are breath bricks to support the guardless singing project. We could have meant song outlasts poetry. This piece is called 6 Components from Aristotle, and it was inspired or occasioned by thinking about the Kursk submarine that was trapped under the Barents Sea, and after an explosion the sailors inside perished. And it's got 6 little sections. Plot. End of the Cold War, some air had been forgotten and was safe. The submarine Kursk, its night full of embalmed men used by the state. The report in Russian was translated as, the submarine wrecked in a point 69040 north 37035 east, and lied on oozy and sand ground on depth of 108 meters, with heel 25 degrees on port side and down 5 to 7 degrees by the bow. As time goes by, the submarine became covered more and more by slurry. Her heel increased for some time now, but stopped now. The reactor is in suppressed state. Temperature of water on depth of 100 meter, -3, -4 degrees of Celsius, on a surface -7, -8 degrees. There are many versions were discussed, including fabulous. Having no place to stand, the men having no place to stand, having been disappointed by the desired presence, crowded forward, those who never touched the control panel. Character. The captain had been sent down but was not returning. The men are more of a dido. Their hope has only one ship that keeps getting lost over and over. Vertical says to horizontal, I can again. In the medium wave, the unconscious has no breath. In the storm, they're lowering the ladder. Weather was in control as a list. In the Barents Sea, they are lowering the ladder. Others called out. After the explosion, a type of consciousness that had forgotten itself, a million beneaths, perfecting the weapon that makes no mistakes. The place power can't know about. Thought. With 2 lines of thought, the mind is an angle. One line is missing, the world is eaten. They stand in back of the ship. They have grown into one. I have grown into one thinking about them. We come into this world pure, a configuration of the lack of air. We breathe the blurry stars, we recover. In that place, indifferent to reality, a type of platonic oxygen between space itself. Why let it go? Private Dido, she's the plot, the men. The ship gets lost over and over. Diction. Every word from them was not inevitable. The men wait. Looking up, they spot the blurry stars. The Cold War meant what it was meant to be American and not save Russians. Children practice crouching under their desks. Kursk keeps writing all the I's through the years. I, everyone, I, universe. I kept writing the title, The Wreck of the Deutschland, in my notebook that summer and added, but without God. How does one write when the laws that limit power have failed? Corporate with the celestial. My life in a tangle at that time. Hopkins a bit of a Dido, pretty much a burning magpie nun. Melody. Such a silly word. That point in creation when everything is worse, and what you were afraid of happening happened. A warm storm started, wanting a word with them, beside, under, above, between. Governments phoned them, could phone them, cables sang to them, seemed to sing to them. Ordinary men as nuns for Hopkins are ordinary. Once on the shore might be sung to, burned. Assumed someone would rescue them, exchanging their fate for happens to be born. Spectacle. What does Aristotle mean by the sixth element? We use it for capitalism, circuses, weathers. Can we remake the elements? I thought about the men in the submarine for years. Their words made of non-air, all governments failing them into news, then putting a tube of silence down. The need to make form. We talked of this in class, how form can't be an error. The submarine as a tube of air meant nothing to them. It breathed in each ocean on Earth. In the present conflict, each fire equals reused air from the Cold War. Tube of silence, and there is still a silence under that. As Evelyn mentioned, I work with trance a lot, and so some of my poems come out of that. I thought I'd read a short trance poem. In the trance, a pretty anarchist said to me, "It's not that a great love happens. What happened became your great love." Her echo had an ancient glow, and so proved buoyant for my little craft. I left the world and felt a world. The bee loading its gloves with powder, the albatross wanting one thing from the sea. "Nothing can wreck our boat," said she. And when the water felt the glacier, the future held a present tense, the present held a future without cease. I do Jungian hypnotherapy, and there are always figures that sort of recur, and I believe the unconscious is truly, as Jung suggests, collective, or that we have figures that are a part of the whole, that cut across individual cultures. I'm coming with a bad cold tonight, but I hope that the mic is really great, so I hope it's audible. While I'm doing that, I can pause for a little. So my friend Alan Gilbert asked me to read a poem from, there's a series in Practical Water about working with Congress. I worked with, as Evelyn suggested, Code Pink, and I'm a little bit tired of working with Congress now. Tired of them. I'm tired of them. I'm sick of them. I don't work with Congress right now. But for about 5 years, I was very dutiful. I went and I sort of took lobbying packets, and I was really working to try to work about defense spending and especially the wars. And this is a poem that came from one of those visits. A Violet in the Crucible comes from Shelley's Defense of Poetry. Shelley wants you to visit Congress when he writes A Violet in the Crucible, and when he notes imagination is enlarged by a sympathy, that you may intuit environments as endangered creatures do when 7 million pounds of nitrogen flow into the Chesapeake. As you push open the cherrywood door, and the intern looks up from her map of wheels beside the philodendron with streaked anemic arrows and a jar of pins from pharmaceutical firms. Shelley knows you are endangered as the eyeless shrimp, Stychobromus hyee, living among rocks upstream in Virginia, feeding on dying leaves is, or the congressman you came to visit is endangered, feeding in the Rayburn cafeteria with the lobbyist from Bechtel, having left his aide endangered in her faux maple carol to work on the war funding bill, where seedlings of the law have finished sprouting. You look at things to make them speak. You have thread-like legs found only in your species. The cogs are selling credits to the dams for phosphorus to go into the sea. When Shelley says the poet is the legislator, he means as the dusky-tailed darter from Tennessee legislates, or the Indiana bat, Myotis sodalist, the dwarf wedge mussel, half buried in Maryland, with your bivalve in silt of your wetland habitat, as you, the vanishing northeastern bulrush from Massachusetts, legislate by shrinking. He doesn't mean you will live. He means you could live on listen, as the sturgeon in 1 million pounds of phosphorus or the snowy plover from Cascadia might. The aide is living on listen too. He takes your words. There's a little you in his left eye, which tries to focus on your nervous speech, a stubby tassel swinging on his shoe. He's got a friend in the Marines who likes it over there instead of working in the tire shop after high school. The punctuation falling from your eyes, its eyes, their eyes, his eyes, is merging with as he explains the Pentagon budget, His sentences forming a 5-star alkaline. We cannot leave them there without weapons, He cannot see the stars camped in your heart, the bunched up stars, though he also has stars in his heart, and his friend the Marine has stars. When Shelley notes the poet is meant to cheer, he means your name is on the list right here. He means if you don't survive this way, there are others. He means send the report with your body. Shelley, before I leave Practical Water, I have to read. At this very moment, I was told by my friend Matthew Zapruder, who's here, that it was 1-0 Giants, and 2-0, he's holding up fingers. Yay! And Barry Zito, who you all may not know this, but Barry Zito is our Hamlet. He is a challenged, sensitive person, and he is pitching, and he has a triumphant recovery this year. 15? Is it 15 wins? 15 wins. So I wrote Barry Zito a poem when he was having struggles, and I sent the book to him, and I signed the poem, and Barry didn't write back. June Moon. These little moon poems in here have 2 columns. June Moon. Light said, if the tablets are written with silence, what good is a prophecy? Light said, let's be like the mirror we found in the leaf, why don't we? Or that's what summer said it said, when we made time past 20 azure frogs in the pond, or when it held time's arrows. June Moon. Have you lost your way with technique? Try pitching between other styles, why don't you? Night is young, but doesn't lack experience. Your hope flies over the field. Little voice, little fact, bracelet of signs for the unknown. I don't blame him for not writing that. It's not It's not exactly easy to see how that applies to his problem, but so I thought I'd read some some poems from the Fire book, which is just about done. It's going to be called Seasonal Works with Letters on Fire, and these poems are occasioned by thinking into the seasons in odd moments where California has many, many micro-seasons, of course, and the micro-seasons have odd emotions associated with them. And so I was just trying to, in a way that kind of brings, I don't know, modernism and romanticism and postmodernism together or something, thinking about how the seasons would talk to the emotions. So I'm going to read some from autumn and a couple from other seasons. To spirits of fire after harvest. Between earth and its noun, I felt a fire. What does it mean by I, Mrs.? It means, and I quote, one of the vowels in the brain and some of the U's. We were interested in the type of thing humans can't know, interested in kinds of think animals think, a rabbit or a skink. You Mrs. Skiltonianus, when autumn brings a grammar, wasps circle the dry stalks, and you can totally see through amber ankles, dangling and dazzle, under our Lord the Son of Literature. Between noon and its noun, there were ridged and golden runes on pumpkins, bluish gourds in the fields, their white eyes lined up inside. Wait a sec. Please don't nail the door shut. The air is friendly and non-existent as Veronica's veil. Earth, don't torment your fool, your ambassador clown. Bring the X of oxygen and sex, a fox running sideways through present noon. Grammar of this life at noon. The immortals wait in the fields, and the newt under the laurel, a dragon whose three heads argued with themselves, the push thistles, Celstrina echo butterfly with automatic semicolons on his wings, 'twill hide under the Clorox cloud, and that's that. Some punctuation is just too sensitive to be outside. Stubby white teeth on that baby vole, smile on its face, creep like Gnostic Jesus, its comma, 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 claws, verbless mosquito egg daylight. Worker, dreamer, your soul has slept with countesses so long his hands still smell like money. He says to himself, my lord the sun has thrown his sexual shadow upon me. Oops, where did it go? It's just fallen behind something. What has? Whatever you lost. Between the souls and the meteors. The ancestors turn in the sycamore, leaves like hunched over squirrels. A freeze might take the lemon tree. That thing of dozing over a book. The writer just got powder now. Miles up, sparks drag through meteors. Miles down, creatures eat rock mixed with fire. Someone prays for you, even if you don't like it. Our suicides sleep in the mind of a word. We want our mother not to have suffered. Moonbeam snake where a tan oak shivers. We want our father not to have suffered, or the three cats sprinkled with western dawn. The little baby sleeps on his side, his dream face turned to the woods. A fox sleeps with its mouth of color. And the O in your head, the damaged vowel, where the skin rises to meet the wound. What does that spell? I don't know, since it got to go on living, but it seems like basically it's kind of a combination. Everything means everything, plus there is no hidden meaning. The vowels pass by in English, and the owl drops flowers from its eyes, Dentaria californica, the raceme, the stub stem lands straight in the woods as ancients do. On a hazel branch, a cocoon hoists itself with a worm's mind. Ai is released in winter as humans hold bones to the fire. Oh, they were there a long time, interpreting the dead loves as meaning seeped through the cracks of centuries held by everyone. The ocean rises by inches. When the wave withdraws, lovers pick evidence from married footprints as the lyric does, or sanity. luminescent creatures sink red in the sand, for they have swallowed all 3 sunsets. And the vowels pass by in English, the ruined banisters of the A, the bridle ring of the O, the saddle of the U brought from the underworld. I had to negotiate with devils to retrieve even this much from the language of the colonizers. I'm challenged by Giovanni's beautiful singing performance, so I'm going to read for her 2 summer obats after John Clare. John Clare has a lot of bird sound poems. And long before I read John Clare, I thought there was a way in which we can't personify birds and they can't personify us, and there's just really no commerce, but there's some way in which language abstractly gets a little conversation. 1, Toby wakes a woman. Beep, beep, see beep, see beep, see beep, see beep, chip, 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 beep, 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 chip, beep, chip, beep, chip, beep, chip, beep, see beep, see beep, see beep. A woman tosses, gulf disaster, stir, sister, aster, aster, asp, peep, peep, chip, chip, peep, beep, 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 scream, scream, scream. We didn't need to move so fast. 2, woman in red sweater to hummingbird. We. No, I'm not sweet, not sweetie. I'm not something to eat. That's for Jonathan Skinner, who is really also in love with John Clare. Equinox ritual with ravens and pines. So we said to the somewhat be born, and the shadow kept arriving in segments. Cold currents pushed minerals up from the sea floor, up through coral and labels of Diet Coke, blame, shame bottles down there. It is so much work to appear. Unreadable zeros dropped lamps as mustard fields, gold without hinges, a vital echo of caring. On the census, just right, it exists. Blue Wednesday bells strike the air like forks on a thrift store plate, and the shadow moves over to the side. In the woods, loved ones tramp through the high grass. They wait in a circle for the fire to begin. They throw paper dreams and sins upon the pyre and kiss, stoking the first hesitant flame after touching a map to the bad news. Branches are thrust back across the myths before the flame catches. Ravens lurch through double-knuckled pines and the oaks and the otherwise. A snake slivers over serpentine, then down to the first dark, where every cry has sighs. And I'm going to read 2 more poems. One is my husband and I were participating in Occupy Oakland when the police were clearing out the tents on Cal campus, and some of my students were there, and I felt very much as if we were acting as a group, you know. Since I work with Code Pink, I'm not afraid of police per se at all. So we were in front of the line, and my sense was that we were all acting as a group, as a unit of energy. And I looked down and I saw a little line of ants along the wall that was there separated. So this is kind of a prose poem, and it's got like a rift in the middle of one of the paragraphs. A brutal encounter recollected in tranquility. Sorry for that, just a second. Sorry for that, that was long. Matthew, what's the score?
4-0, John.
See, it's a good night, people.
Yeah.
You came to the reading. Giovanni read beautifully. Giants, 4-0. Sorry for you Tigers fans. This is the brutal encounter recollected in tranquility, of course, is based on Wordsworth's notion of that you have to have emotion there in you all the time, and that you can tap into it then. There is a space of uncertainty in every act, even standing before police in riot gear. Looking into their eyes, we think it's possible to reach them. We reach out with my feelers. The crowd presses in. The night is exactly the age of our students. What will be called batons, nightsticks, or truncheons, clubs, are certain in the angle of their hitting. Looking into the eyes of the officers when they start moving to clear the bit of ground, we know the point is lost. The evening news reports resistance to officers but not to bad money. Looking into their eyes, trained not to meet other eyes, amber spokes around each pupil. We think they are scared, but not scared enough, and some probably have children in public schools. What should we do with a lost point? Euclid notes that geometry begins from a point that has no part. Peaceful protest as they move forward. A student resists and is beaten. Our feet no longer touch earth, but connect with other feet underground. Will defending the tents bring down bad money? I distrust moral certainty and even distrust the sentence, I distrust moral certainty. I admire the anti-heroic line of ants. I admire the unknown. Looking the cops in the eye is not the point, nor is fighting about the state budget the point, nor is the point waking up in jail to pay for a decade that was asleep. The point moves with other points in beauty and justice because we cannot see the whole. A group can be mystical or a mob. The point moves during the hitting that moves where the body stands or lies. 2 feet make 2 points, and that is how the line is drawn. Sometimes I am sick of humans, except for babies, poets, and the ones I love. As we stand outside loving each other, we cannot forget the ants under us, making smart corridors in the wet ground, even under the chancellor's house, seeking sweets at all hours, finding friends who are exceptions, whose actions make a line. If ants fail, they begin again. When the officers use their nightsticks, truncheons, batons on our ribs, we are knocked back, but students have it worse. They're decked. They take blows in a line on the earth. You cannot be sure you won't fight back until your friends are in danger. The cops have put hitting behind that feeling. Had I been able to stop the officer's nightstick by grabbing it, I would have, but I am not stupid, the smallish grandmother versus them. And I did not believe grabbing their sticks would work out. Don't hit, I was telling the baby earlier. There are many theories about violence, but when people rise up, it is mostly unplanned. Use your heads, we shout naively at the cops. We won't be a better person until schools are free, but the nightstick cannot poke our soul. Oh no, that nightstick cannot poke our soul. More students are beaten, we cannot stop it. We are close enough to see our feelers and their badges, and the numbers, a bit of bronze and silver in our compound eyes. We have taken an experiment outdoors. Our writing accumulates uncertainty, but most people prefer certainty, which is why writers become depressed. Later, the place where the police put their truncheons hurts when we make love, and we will make love outside of time. Go home to your families, we naively shout, and try to study the badges in our section. Later we recall one of the cops was named Young and another was named Hart. Euclid says non-existent points can make a line we all agree exists. Your writing offers recovery from non-existence, and one cure for depression is action. Writing may be your most necessary action, but it can't be your only one. If you find yourself on the dirt with feelers, it is good to get back underground. The ants reach other ants at the edge of the lawn. They pass the message along. And I'll close with a poem for you all, readers and writers of poetry. After a long, difficult day, you talk to your loved ones at night. It is a kind of modernism. Color leaks into you, thinks a warm path, a tint of meaning brought from how you feel. Then you are double, the owl calls out, Tyto alba in your sleep. Screep skr, heart-shaped face emitting loose nouns. Under its turf, the smart mouse turns. The fierce dead merge with the recently born, where earlier they emptied what you seek. How will you be known? Some registered complaints. You pass them in the hallway, their new haircuts. The bosses are known by new wars. What salmon are left hurry upstream, cold swaths in the bay. Linnets by rose fire and the edges. Linnet or finch? The word edge has wings made of E. The moon rests in a mantle of minutes, its boundaries in back of the trees. Boundaries are known by their nothings. You will be known by your dreams. Thank you.